This is the ZOWIE Xl2566K. It's a 1080p 360Hz fast TN monitor and one I've been using now for the better part of a month. On launch, it promised to be the fastest display on the market for competitive FPS players, and to be honest, I'd say that's pretty damn accurate. From the outside, it looks exactly like a ZOWIE monitor. The bezels remain comparatively large by 2023 standards, but that isn't something I'm against, as depending on your webcam, it prevents that dreaded Apple-style notch. The display sits on top of an updated but still unobtrusive 100 by 100 VESA compliant stand, which continues to offer complete height, tilt and pivot adjustment. ZOWIE have always had the best base for competitive players too, and here they've managed to reduce its size further, also making it lower profile. This all aids in preventing interference when angling keyboards or using bigger mouse pads. All physical buttons have been moved to the back now too, accompanied also by a joystick to ease navigation, and it's additionally bundled with an optional S switch that now features onboard memory. The shields also return, which you might find useful in blocking unwanted light or distractions from behind, but for most of us they'll be reserved for esports events where they're very much welcomed. Underneath the display, you'll find your DisplayPort 1.4 input, two HDMI 2.0 inputs, which will accept 120Hz on console, the micro USB port for an S switch, a headphone jack, and of course the power input. There's also a headphone hanger present on the back, and the only thing really missing here is a USB pass-through, as that's something I often used for external storage. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the XL2566K should always be your first choice over a 360Hz IPS alternative, as that will depend entirely on your use case. Put it simply though, IPS will always deliver better viewing angles, but at slightly slower pixel response times that are noticeable mainly in darker environments, whilst this fast TN will deliver best-in-class motion performance with comparatively decent visuals if you're sat in front. When you consider the amount of adjustment that ZOWIE also offer through their on-screen display, then this monitor becomes a very favourable option indeed, and on paper the obvious choice for competitors looking for the best combination of image clarity, smoothness and low signal processing delay. We'll talk OLED if a 1080p competitor panel launches in future, but it would have to match this ZOWIE in refresh rate, because in my experience that combination of hertz and in-game FPS is often king for the most connected and responsive experience. So bringing it back, this monitor essentially represents a culmination of over 10 years experience in delivering monitors for esports players, and it's resulted in by far their most impressive and complete offering to date. Not only will you find the usual adjustments that competitive players have come to expect in tournament play, i.e. black equalizer, color vibrance, advanced motion acceleration and DyAc+, but ZOWIE now offer complete variable refresh rate support via the OSD, ultimately delivering industry-leading performance across the board. That's also in addition to everything found within the customizable picture modes too, which when set to the standard preset out of the box, gives you a great image to start from. Each preset will store everything found on the OSD, and what's cool is you also have an additional 3 save states on that S switch, which are stored by holding down one of the buttons for about 3 to 5 seconds. I've replicated my personal settings across all 3, and for button 1 I've disabled DyAc, for button 2 I've enabled it with it set to premium, and for button 3 I instead have variable refresh rate enabled. From there I simply adjust black equalizer and color vibrance on a situational basis, and that's after adding it to the quick menu, which is perfect. So starting with the more casual experience in Hogwarts Legacy, whilst it is a visually impressive game, it also tends to be a bland one no matter your display. Here no black equalizer is necessary, but adding a touch of color vibrance really does enhance some of the vegetation and color variation, and when dropping down the brightness in game, results in what I think the game should look like out of the box, which is realistic and yet fantastical. In CSGO meanwhile, we can use those same 2 settings to try and gain a competitive edge. Now whilst the developers since launch have done their best to brighten up some of the darkest of areas on maps, adding a touch of black equalizer, which aims to lighten up darker shades without impacting other aspects of the image, and combining that with color vibrance to help the rest of the colors pop, might give you an advantage in identifying enemies on Inferno, for example. If you then combine this with DyAc+ to reduce sample and hold blur even further than that fast TN panel already achieves, then at high and stable frame rates you should end up with a clearer image, especially evident in this game when controlling recoil, and in situations when you're forced to flick shot. So with all that said, what are my final thoughts on the XL2566K? Well, I feel I always end my ZOWIE reviews in the same way, and that's to say I could spend hours talking about just how good this monitor is. I've had the opportunity to watch several reviews of this monitor since launch, and one common sticking point always seems to be that their recommendation of this monitor is for competitive players only, but I'm not sure I entirely agree. I think if you're in the market for a 1080p gaming monitor, and this display is within budget, and you don't want to look at a 1440p alternative, then this should absolutely be on your list to consider no matter what. Now, hold a peacekeeper to my head, and I will of course admit IPS is wonderful for media consumption, and you'll still be able to compete at a top level with a good one as well. They're also nice if you do home workouts where your viewing position might constantly change, and I certainly wouldn't rule out one of the BenQ Mobius alternatives if you're more casual than you are competitive, and after all, it would tick more boxes. However, and this is where it gets tricky, there really is a level of immersion that's found from gaming on a display that's as fast as this one, no matter the genre. And hopefully this demonstration of Test UFO will give you an idea as to just how clear this display operates with both DyAc Plus off and DyAc Plus on at 360Hz. I'd also like to use this as an opportunity to be as abundantly clear as possible, and that's to say there's a definitive reason as to why ZOWIE went with what appears to be a controversial decision in sticking with a fast TN panel over an IPS one for their premiere display. Now, I used an Alienware AW2521H for the better part of 2 years, and this is undisputedly on another level when it comes to motion clarity, and I'd even argue you might not need to utilise DyAc as it's that fast. When you do toggle it on, those faster transitions ultimately result in less crosstalk and thus a superior image all around. I'm also still amazed that in 2023, nobody has achieved blur reduction as well as ZOWIE, as there's absolutely no change to image brightness or colours when enabling it. So to summarise, for me the ZOWIE Xl2566K is, without a doubt, the best 1080p monitor for any PC gamer today, which is only cemented further if your use cases for competitive play, where I believe it's then unmatched. It doesn't matter if I'm holding angles in CS, tracking enemies in Quake, scrolling around the map in Dota 2, flying around in Hogwarts Legacy, or even doing a little editing in Photoshop. In all use cases I've thoroughly enjoyed and continue to enjoy my time using this display. Honestly, the only real alternative to me that offers any possible improvement for gaming, unless you need those enhanced viewing angles of IPS, lies when jumping to a higher resolution than 1080p for better clarity and long distance engagements, or maybe going wider for games like Path of Exile and Diablo. Just bear in mind that these two options also come at the cost of lower FPS and thus higher input latency, so do consider your system's performance in that decision. If that's your jam though, and to be honest I do miss 1440p when I'm not playing super competitively and want the highest of frames, you should definitely check out the Mobius range from BenQ, and specifically their recently launched Xl2566K, which could be right up your alley. As for me, at least for the time being, I'm going to continue using this display. The reason I sat on this review for a while was that I was waiting for the 8000Hz Death Adder to launch so I could experience a higher polling rate on this monitor. If you have any plans to use above 4000Hz on your mouse, then I'd definitely consider a monitor like this one too for your next display. Whilst higher DPI in general can help saturate a higher polling rate, a higher refresh rate display also benefits from that higher polling rate mouse as well, as it should offer an even smoother image, or at least that's the theory, and it can certainly be noticed in a controlled environment. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, then make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions or comments, then go ahead and leave them down below. Don't forget to subscribe for more reviews in future, and I'll also be live on Twitch using the display, so if you want to jump in and get involved in the live discussion, I'll gladly look forward to seeing you there. For now though, take care, keep gaming, thanks to ZOWIE for shipping out the monitor, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.